Hi, welcome to the Cube Show podcast. College football podcast comes to you on Sundays. We're going to continue our team reviews today. A lot to get to with this team, a lot to discuss with this team. We've talked about Texas, Oklahoma coming into the SEC. We reviewed Oklahoma's spring last week. Now we'll go to the Texas Longhorns. Schedule, maybe not as daunting as Oklahoma's. Personnel, stronger in some places. Some question marks still that we need to get to with those Longhorns. How are they going to fare year one of the SEC? First, as you know, each and every week, brought to you by our friends at Wickles Pickles. Wickedly delicious. We always have them on standby. We always snack on them. We love Wickles Pickles. Please check them out in your local grocery store. Go to wickles.com. If you can't find them there, first off, you probably should ask them, why don't you have these? You need to have these. And we want to use them for appetizers, snacks, recipes that you can find at Wickles Pickles on Instagram. Title sponsor of the show. We appreciate them. Thank you so much for being a part of it. All right, Texas 12-2 a year ago. We reached 8-1 under Steve Sarkisian in conference. They make the college football playoff. They go down to Washington in what ended up being a pretty good game. Looked like Washington might run away with it early. Quinn Ewers finds a way to bring that team back. A couple turnovers help out, but they cannot advance in the college football playoff. A lot of talent going to be gone from this Texas football team. Jonathan Brooks, 1,100-yard rusher. Xavier Worthy, 1,000-yard receiver. A.D. Mitchell, Jatavion Sanders at tight end is going to be gone. We know those two D tackles, Byron Murphy, Javonte Sweat, going to be out of there. Jalen Ford at linebacker, who was a staple on that Texas defense the last couple of years, also going to be gone. So, all that being said, how do they fill in? I thought Texas did as good of a job as anybody in the transfer portal this offseason of finding players, not just at a position of need, but similar players at those positions that would come very close to not just filling a need of needing a tight end or needing a receiver or needing a D tackle, but being the style player and type player that you lost. Like you think about it, Jatavion Sanders gone, you bring in Amari Niblack. I mean, from an athleticism standpoint, that's about as close as you can get. Xavier Worthy, the way that he's able to run in the slot and able to kind of take the top off. You know, you go and you get a Silas Bolden to put in the slot and be able to help you with some of the catch and run stuff, and Isaiah Bond that can help you on the outside or the inside. So, Jordan Whittington, more of a bigger physical receiver. You go get a Matthew Golden, who might be able to help you in a couple different places. I think going to be sort of B+ across the board. D tackles we'll get to in a minute, but it just felt like there were certain positions of need, but also type players at that position. The Texas did a pretty good job going out and getting. So Quinn Ewers is back in quarterback. All indications are that the leadership took another step this offseason. It's going to be a big summer for he and Archie Manning, because that's when you get on the same page with all the receivers, or at least continue to. Didn't see a ton of Quinn in the spring game. Saw a lot of Archie and a couple of the other quarterbacks. We'll get to that, discuss it. But Quinn Ewers, somebody who I thought from a personality standpoint, a leadership standpoint, made a massive leap a season ago. I was able to sit down with him at the Alamo Bowl 2 years ago, and I stated on this podcast that I was blown away with the personality, because he was not the Andre Agassi that everybody thought he was. It wasn't about him, never talked about himself, deflected all the attention to his teammates. He was very humble. I almost began to think maybe too humble to be a great college quarterback. And I think going out of his way to change his body a little bit last season, you've seen that maturity continue to come along. And everybody I've spoken to has said that's continued with Quinn Ewers. Now, you want to see the timing, be on the same page. He missed a few throws in that spring game, didn't have a chance to get in rhythm, didn't play a bunch of series. And I do think that the arm angles, a lot of times, you're just going to miss some balls because I think it's going to prevent you from being accurate on certain throws. Certain throws going to get batted down or have a better potential to be able to get batted down. When you have to move in the pocket, if that arm angle is not up a little bit higher, sometimes that's going to force you to have to change things. And I think when you move arm angles around and it's not consistent, it forces a few more incompletions. I'm not saying it's going to be a problem, or he's not going to be able to go out and complete 70% of his passes. It's just that I do think there are going to be times where that comes up because of the arm angles and how different it's going to be. 3,479 yards passing last year, 22 touchdowns, 6 picks. He was 69%. The problem early with Quinn Ewers was the deep ball, right? Everybody said no deep ball accuracy, didn't have that. First 15 starts, 24% on passes, 20 or more yards downfield. Last 7 starts, 43% on his passes, 20 or more yards down the field. So he has been able to improve upon that. And one thing that I was surprised about Texas when I dove into some of the numbers from last year is how good they were with the catch and run. Now, I know Sark's screen guy, RPO guy, quick throw guy. He's going to find his matchups. But it didn't feel like they were that good of a catch and run team, whereas only UAB, Army, and Air Force were better with yards after the catch than Texas was last year. Georgia came in just behind Texas as well. Probably another one that's surprising. What you think, Brock Bowers and traditional screens to the backs, maybe not as much. But I bring that up because I think Texas might be able to be better with that this upcoming season. We'll get to those receivers here in just a second. But you look at what Archie Manning was able to do in the spring game. We've already seen a little bit of him now, 2 spring games in a row. I loved his command. I loved the way he went out and operated the offense. He had a lot of poise pre-snap, in the huddle / at the line of scrimmage, whatever you want to call it, directing traffic, saw him change some things. In the pocket when he was pressured, a ton of poise. The throw to Bond on the left sideline late, running that 2-minute drill, when he had a little bit of pressure from his left side, he probably could have stepped up and made that throw a little bit more, but he just kind of waited on it. He had confidence in his receiver that he was going to win the one-on-one. He saw the safety down, knew he was going to be able to take that shot, and he delivered an accurate football. And it was a touch throw, not one that he tried to put too much mustard on and tried to squeeze it in. He just floated it out there because he knew he had time. But that poise, I always talk about quarterbacks finding their calm in the pocket. I saw Archie Manning find his calm in the pocket right now. That's not the only time it's ever going to happen, the only time he's ever going to do it. But it showed me that he's going to be able to be that guy in the pocket. Good accuracy the majority of the time. Now, Archie Manning's not going to be Warren Moon and just throw a beautiful football every time. It's just kind of not his thing, not what he's going to be. It doesn't matter because the ball usually is where it's supposed to be. I thought that little slant to Bond in the end zone, catchable football. I thought Bond should have had it. There was another one Isaiah Bond also had another one. I think Quinn Ewers down by his knees where he dropped it. I've heard that Bond had a nice spring, was productive in the spring, caught just about everything in the spring, but the spring game showed some of those inconsistencies catching the football that I heard about in Tuscaloosa last year. Either way, he's dynamic, he's explosive. Kid made arguably one of the top 5 individual plays in the history of Alabama football in Jordan-Hare Stadium last year. He's going to be able to make plays, and they're going to utilize his skill set. But just from a quarterback perspective, quick delivery, deliberate, poise, accurate, running the 2-minute drill, finding his matchups as one-on-ones, those are the things that I saw from Archie Manning. So I think Texas goes into this season arguably in better position with their quarterback room than anybody else in the league. I think you could probably talk about Ole Miss a little bit. That might be a team that you would at least have a discussion about. But we always wanted to make this a negative for such a long time. Oh, one's going to transfer. The fans are going to talk about it. I think because of the way that Arch and his family have handled this, managed this, it doesn't have the feeling that it's going to be a negative for this football team this year. It just doesn't. I don't feel that way. I don't know if other people feel that way, but to me, it feels like it's going to be a situation that I think everybody's going to be happy about, feels good about, and that we're going to be able to go into, and probably, if needed, we'll see Arch. Obviously, there'll be times that he's going to be able to play a little bit. However, he's not going to be a situation where he's distracting and he's problematic and everybody's looking at it like, oh, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? How are we going to manage this? All right, so with Quinn Ewers kind of taking that step, great understanding of the offense, a little bit more leadership, physically more capable, Arch Manning behind him, great relationship and understanding between those two there, knowing why. And my understanding is that Sark wanted to put Arch in some of those situations in the spring game. That's why he got the extra run that he did. Wanted to see him against some live bullets, wanted to see him handle some situational football, because now he's that guy, and Quinn's been dinged up the last 2 years at certain times. Get him ready. Show me what you got, and he was able to do that. They know what they have with Quinn Ewers. You feel good about that. Like I said, critical summer for both, being able to get on the same page with some new faces. Right, so that wide receiver position we talked about, Isaiah Bond, we mentioned him, what he's about, solid versatility. I think you'll see him inside and outside. That's kind of going to be maybe part of the core message with this receiving core is versatility. Like I said, I think collectively you have more juice with this group than you did a year ago. Now, does that mean individually any of them run like Xavier Worthy did? No, probably not, but don't need to. So I think the catch and run capability altogether might be a little bit better. Jonte Cook, legit speed, can play him in different places. He's versatile. I think he may end up being sort of the go-to outlet for Quinn Ewers, kind of that safety plug, safety valve for Ewers by the time the season's over. Or maybe at some point just when we get into it. Silas Bolden comes in from Oregon State. I've watched this kid play. I've seen his film. Trust me, Oregon State's been in the mix for the Joe Moore Award the last couple of years. I've watched a ton of Oregon State offense. This kid can go. He's durable. He's physical. He is a traditional slot wide receiver. His dad, I believe, is a track coach. So one reason he's got the legit speed that he has, in my understanding, he's been catching everything since he's been in and around. Didn't go through spring ball, but going to be a big-time option for this football team. A lot of the quick throws that he can turn into explosives, I think he has a chance to have a big year. 54 for 746 and 5 touchdowns receiving last year. There is a star in the making in Ryan Wingo. Saw him make a couple big catches down the field, so he's got the speed to be able to take the top off. He's a bigger body, though, so he can handle things on the outside. You saw one of the early catches, it's a little bit high, and he goes up and reels that thing in, but he didn't leave his feet. He doesn't try to jump up and catch it at his face mask. He has that innate ability to just pop, get the hands up, pull it down, get it to the body, and trying to pick up some extra yards. Bigger, with speed, and different than probably anybody else on this football team. There's a chance Ryan Wingo, we could be talking about him as the guy in this receiving core by the end of the season. And you still have Matthew Golden, who I think is going to kind of be just sort of a B+ all the way around. You can move him around, put him in different places, solid hands, good enough speed, but not a burner. Just sort of that overly reliable wide receiver in every single way. So you look at those options that you have there, and there really are no voids. There are no holes. Now, do you have the as physical a body as you did with Jordan Whittington last year? No. But I think what you have from a catch and run perspective, and then some of the bigger bodies that can help you down the field, you got just about everything you can ask for and more inside this wide receiver room for this quarterback group there at Texas this upcoming season. Sark also is going to know how to move guys around. He's going to mix the personnel groupings. He's going to mix the formations. Motion-based matchup offense is what Steve Sarkisian is going to give you. That's how he described it to me. And now you have a lot of different options to line up in different places that can go down the field and get it, or that can catch a high percentage throw and help turn that into an explosive play. Running back, I think, is a spot where CJ Baxter probably starts out as the guy. CJ Baxter, somebody who lives in the facility, one of their best recruiters on the football team, goes out of his way to meet and develop relationships with his teammates, just a good kid. And somebody who has sort of all the capabilities, speed, physicality, to be able to go out there and be an every down back. Now, Sark has not been a sort of run a guy into the ground coach in a while. Think about the 2 backs that he's had since he's been at Texas. Didn't do it then. Don't think he's going to start doing it now. Last time I feel like I saw Sark do that was maybe with Najee Harris at Alabama, but I still didn't feel like it was force feed 38-42 a game. So it doesn't have to be that kind of a coach. It doesn't have to be that kind of a guy. But Baxter could be an every down back. You saw the one catch in the spring game out of the backfield. Make it got missed, truck the next guy. Like, he has all of that ability, and I think could be a big time back. 659 last year, 5 touchdowns when he was on the field. Jaden Blue, a little bit more of the get up and go, sort of make you miss, got some more shake. So he gives you a different kind of back. And Trey Wisner, I think, is going to be somebody that is a little bit of a utility player. Somebody who I think can help you out in different ways. He'll probably play some special teams, but I think he'll get some run. Had a really nice spring game. Saw him do some different things there. I know you got Clark and Gibson, a couple of freshman running backs, but I just don't know how they see too much time with the other 3 backs that are going to be in front of them. And it's just exactly what they're capable of doing. Like, I don't see a third down guy that's not going to be able to help in pass pro, that's not going to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield. I just feel like there's a lot to offer there with those running backs out of the backfield. Also, just from a quarterback perspective, this Trey Owens kid, love what I saw from him. Good legs, quick release, not afraid to try to fit the ball in some tight windows, can push the ball down the field, then show some nice touch down the sideline. Does have the lower delivery, though, kind of like yours does. I was impressed with him, and Cole Lord came in and did some nice things. So once again, that quarterback room for Texas looks like it's in great shape. Whether you're in great shape or not, Blue Delta jeans can be for you. The most comfortable denim you're ever going to have. And I know they've set up right there in Austin a couple of times. Nick and the guys have gone out and get everybody hooked up with Blue Delta jeans. This is the denim that you want because it's made for you, custom fit for you, flexible, stretchy, breathable. You can dress it up, you can dress it down. Blue Delta jeans are the best jeans on the market. Go to bluedeltajeans.com. You can get fit digitally. You can get a gift card if you need that. If you got a birthday coming up, back to school, whatever that is, somebody going off to college, send them off with a nice pair of jeans from Blue Delta. Tell me, Nick and the guys, you heard about them right here on the Cube Show podcast. All right, so we've covered wide receiver, running back, quarterback. Tight end, you lose Jatavian Sanders, but you go get Amari Niblack. I'm pretty sure David Ballou told me that they had him at over 22 miles an hour on the GPS when he was at Alabama. Kick and flat run. I've been hearing about it for 2 years before last year. They've been waiting to get him in the lineup, use him a little bit more last year. He can be a legitimate weapon. Now, you saw some of him in the spring game. Is he going to be a liability as a blocker? Close to it. I'm not going to go full liability like I saw a different tight end later in the game for Texas in the spring game, but he's willing. He's working on it. My understanding is that it's something that he wants to get better at, that he's trying to get better at. And so if he's willing and he wants to get in there and stick his nose in, shoot his hands and try to be a better blocker, he has the athletic ability to be able to make it work at some point in time. So I'm not overly concerned about it. I just think he's not someone you're going to be able to rely on that part of his game right now. But you got Gunnar Helm, who can be more of an inline tight end, somebody that can help you in different ways. He had a couple catches in the spring game, saw him do some nice things. Juan Davis, I know they really like as well at tight end. He may be a little bit more in between. And then Malik Ogbo, do not be surprised to see him line up in kind of some 6 offensive line formations, some heavier formations for the Longhorns, because he brings a lot of extra athleticism at the tackle position, and I don't think he's quite ready to play tackle yet. But a big physical guy that can move. They want to get him out there in some of those situations. So let's go to offensive line now. Texas is in a small group of teams that I believe has a chance to have the best offensive line in college football. I know for a fact that certain guys inside that facility are talking about the Joe Moore Award. It's a goal of theirs. It's something that they openly discuss. And I think that's great because with the talent they have coming back, the experience that they have coming back, it's something that they should be in the mix for. I was a little longer in the spring game because I didn't see a lot of push right off the line of scrimmage. Now, some of that you have to understand is going to be the offense. It's a little bit of an east-west offense. On RPOs in the offense, screens and quick throws inside the offense. There's a lot of pin and pull. So you're blocking back and pulling around. It's not we are going to rely on duo inside zone to be successful running the football, which means we have to push your ass back in order to be successful. It's just kind of not what it is right now. And that's okay. But from a pass pro perspective, I like what I saw. You got Kelvin Banks back at tackle, who I think has a chance to be one of the best tackles in college football. Kid can flat out play, probably going to be a first rounder. So he'll be over at left. Cam Williams is going to be over at right. Down from 370 to 340. Started the K-State game last year. That's his only start. Big time ability. The feet have got to come along. I saw a couple of times in the run game in the spring game. No step, like a false step in the run game. It's going to get you caught up. Not taking a true pass set. Feet being lazy and kind of getting stuck in pass pro. That's got to change. But he has all the ability. He's got the mean streak. Got to get out of that back bending just a little bit. But he's somebody who came on a lot in the spring that I think is going to help this Texas football team. The good news is you got Jake Majors back at center. Jake Majors is referenced as a football cyborg because it's about all he cares about and all he does. Consistent, outworks everybody. He'll be up for the Remington, and he has a chance to help lead the charge for this Texas offensive line to be up for the Joe Moore Award. Ton of experience, has played really good football. Hayden Connor is a little bit more of your throwback offensive lineman. Versatility, kind of like with that receiving core we talked about. You saw him actually playing center in the spring game. He can play all 5 positions. So he'll be sort of your swing man for every spot if they need him. But described to me as one of those guys that you kind of athletically wouldn't mind replacing, and you kind of wait for somebody to beat him out. Nobody can ever take his position from him because he's too smart, he's too tough, and he just ain't going to give it up. Kids like him I love to hear about in college football because they're guys with more stars, guys with a better bench, guys with more ability, guys with a better 3-cone, and they just can't take his position from him. So having a guy like that back in the lineup gives me a lot of confidence about what this offensive line has a chance to be. And apparently DJ Campbell grew a lot in the spring. And I can tell you this, I saw a couple of combos with 52 and 56 on the right side. That's got a chance to be a problem for some folks. That is a massive double team coming at you. And they moved a couple of defenders in the spring game. And I think that could be a spot that they sort of start to lean on the right side of that offensive line as the season progresses and they get just a little bit more comfortable. Cole Hudson had a little bit of a shoulder issue. He's played earlier in his career. I've seen what he can do. I love his game. He's a guy that'll play. I think he'll be in. Nato Umalazulu, I think he's going to play as well. He has that kind of ability, and when he's been given opportunities, he's taking advantage of it. Those two just aren't cracking the starting lineup, but I think they're starters on a lot of SEC teams. So now you have a starting guard that could easily go down and play center. You have two other backup guards that could easily be starting guards. If you lose a tackle, would it be a Connor Hayden bumping out there right now and a Nito or a Cole Hudson coming in for him? Good chance, probably. I think that swing tackle position is one that's still up for grabs that Kyle Flood will probably try to find in fall camp. Trevor Gooseby staying over on the left side. Saw him struggle a little bit in pass pro in the spring game. Got beaten inside once or twice. Jaden Chapman is going to be over on the left side as well. And Brendan Baker's going to stay on the right side. So some of the younger tackles that are getting a run, but just not quite ready, I don't think, to take over as the legit number 2 right now. I think if Texas finds a bona fide swing tackle in fall practice, that solves one of my big questions for this football team. And they have the bodies to be able to do it. They have the talent to be able to do it. It's just nobody's necessarily taken it just yet. Also, Andre Kojo, big wingspan, massive body. Saw him do some nice things in the spring game. He's somebody that I just wouldn't maybe take out of this mix just yet, but still a little bit young to be in there right now. That's kind of where I am sort of on the Texas offense. And I think sort of, like what it looks like, what it is, and maybe sort of where we go with it. I feel great about it. I want to see the offensive line develop a little bit more oomph. I want to see the offensive line sort of be a group that has that killer instinct, a little extra attitude. They can. It's inside of them. So, and I'll be real with you. Some of that is Sark allowing them to be that. And he doesn't have to do that if he doesn't want to. That's kind of a selfish ask from me. But, it's like Coach Saban used to say when Alabama was super RPO heavy, and all of a sudden they'd be up, 13 or 17 in the fourth quarter and couldn't just go run the ball down people's throat. He's like, listen, we don't do this in practice, or every time we run the ball in practice, the quarterback's throwing a slant. I want to see, they can't just go out there and hit a switch and all of a sudden be dominant inside zone grinders and push people around. It doesn't work that way. So a lot of it will depend on kind of the direction of the offense and where it goes. And I'm sure Sark has to feel some of that out before they either get to it or they don't. Either way, they're going to have big play potential. They have great depth at receiver, running back. I would say good depth at tight end. They're okay there. Good depth at quarterback. And they've got some real depth in the middle of their offensive line. A lot of teams love to have some of the problems that Texas has, like trying to find a swing tackle, trying to make sure that the communication and the rhythm between the quarterback and the receivers is okay, even though they've all played in college football games, big-time college football games, made big plays. But those are the real-world, first-world problems that Texas is dealing with right now. All right, so defensively, we know what's gone. Byron Murphy to Andre Sweat. I'm not going to pretend like they can replace it. I'm not going to pretend like there's another guy or two that they can plug in there and go, they're going to do anything near what those two did last year, because there's not. They're not there. It's the same thing with Georgia a couple of years ago, and we keep trying to compare guys to that group, and they're never going to be that group. There were no guys like this in the portal. Nowhere. None. There were guys to go get that were going to be able to do what these two guys can do, physically, athletically, and probably from a leadership perspective as well. But you have addressed it a little bit. I want to see Alfred Collins will be one of the first guys out there. And then I think Bill Norton from Arizona/Georgia will probably end up being one of the first guys out there as well. I've had Arizona a couple times the last few years. I'm going to tell you, Bill Norton can play. And Bill Norton had something just a little bit different. It's kind of one of the things that I liked about Murphy last year is his wingspan, he added some extra length. And so really both of those guys, it wasn't just being big, physical, wide bodies that had a little bit of shake. Like they had those big paws in the wingspan to remove passing lanes. Like Bill Norton gives you some of that, a little bit more of that, actually. And you would think at 6'6", you're like, nah, leverage, can he stay? No, he can play. He gets it. And I'm telling you, if Bill Norton was at Georgia right now, he'd be starting. I want to see Norton was at Georgia when they had like 11 D tackles that were all in the NFL, and so he wasn't going to bust the lineup. But this kid can play, and he's going to help. He's going to be a big get for Texas. Sabea, who they also get from Arizona, UCLA. I think you saw him in the spring game a little bit, make a couple of plays. I think he'll be active inside. I think he can help. I think you also have Vernon Broughton, who's going to be somebody that's solid, sort of holding the point of attack. It's not going to be a liability inside. You've got to have some veteran D tackles, man. Like, you got to have guys that just understand when you run a twist, like, you have to find a way to occupy two offensive linemen so the loop man can get around, or how to occupy a gap so the backer can slide over and be able to make a play. Like, you just need veterans in there. It's not always about playmakers. You just got to have guys that know how to handle all the situations. And I think they went and got a few guys who can do that. I'll tell you, the kid that I like is Aaron Bryant. 53 in the spring game, was busting it up. He had a couple run plays he penetrates. He has a twist where he's a penetrator and busts through and gets some pressure on the quarterback. Had a nice little swim move where he got in on pass pro one time. I think he'll be possibly in that second wave of D tackles, but he's somebody who can help and somebody who I think can get in there and make some plays. So the numbers are okay there. And if you've got 4 or 5 that you can rotate, even if they're not to the level of what they were a year ago, then they can all individually make their plays at different points in time. I think you can make up for that a little bit. The difference will be what that group allowed you to do off the edge and with the second and third level, because not having to add extra bodies to the run game as much, that might be gone. And so how Pete Kwiatkowski sort of navigates that portion of it will be very interesting for the Texas defense this year. The good news is Texas will be more capable off the edge this year. I want to see Barron Sorrell is going to be back. We've seen him play 4.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks last year. He's a solid player. I want to see. I think he's a little bit more stout against the run, not super loose in pass pro, but he's a good college football player down on the edge. Trey Moore comes in from UTSA. He is a legitimate pass rusher. Doesn't have elite pass rusher length, but that's about the only micro knock on him you're going to get. I've watched his UTSA film. He can rip. Big get off the edge, flexible, can dip and rip, get close to the ground. Got good hands, even though he doesn't have the long wingspan, knows how to use them. Like, he's a crafty pass rusher with twitch, explosiveness, and power. And from what I understand, even though we didn't see him in the spring game, I think he had, a little bit of an injury issue. Wasn't quite 100%, but he ripped it up in practice through spring. And so if anybody was curious about how it would carry over to big-time offensive linemen, he got to face some of those, and he was successful there. I want to see Burke. Probably had a really quiet 9-sack football season last year. I love this kid. Long, throwback, kind of a hard hat, dirty work, like just a mauler, like likes to plug, likes to just like go right down the middle of people. He's a football player. I don't know another way to describe Ethan Burke, 91, off the edge for Texas than just football player. I want to see him. He doesn't have athletic ability. Like, we're not going to be talking about him like we talk about, a top 5 pass rusher talent-wise going out in the draft. But he's crafty. He finds a way to get shit done. And I think he's going to be someone who really helps his football team this year. And then 92, Colton Vasek, Westlake kid who we saw, he did a lot in the spring game. He's out there moving around. He's slanting inside. He's making plays in the backfield. He's getting a little bit of a pass rush, penetration in the run game. I think he can be somebody that helps this defense as well. Now, doesn't mean he's a 15-sack guy, but from a hard hat sort of, getting after you a little bit more, chewing glass off the edge, he can add some depth and be somebody who helps. You've also got Justice Finkley out there, who's a little bit more of a power guy that I think adds a little bit of depth. And then Colin Simmons, the true freshman, is going to play. Like, he's going to play. Number 1 edge coming out last year, high school, in the facility all the time, a worker, great kid from what I understand, wants to be great, wants to work, wants to learn football. He's got big time twitch. He's liked. So you saw him in the spring game. He got stuck on a couple of guys a few times. Like, he's going to have to work his counter moves. And that's something that's going to have to come along if he's going to be an every down player. But the ability is there. The get off is there. The twitch is there. Like, you see it. He's got boom, boom, like rapid fire quickness, and probably could handle a little bit more weight, but somebody who will absolutely see some playing time this fall. And like I said, collectively, I think Texas will be a little better off the edge, which will take some of the heat off the interior and then maybe not have to for a lot of people maybe went into this season saying, well, they're not going to be as much inside, so you're going to add some edge pressure, bring guys from different places. If they're a little better off the edge, you might not have to do that either, and that helps you at the second and third level. Second level, I think, is going to be fine for this defense because you got a linebacker in Anthony Hill that's just waiting to bust out. Like probably going to have a breakout year, special football player, had Jalen Ford in front of him last year. I think he's going to be somebody that makes a lot of plays, has a really good season. I think David Binda is a kid using his COVID year, came back, probably would have gotten drafted late. He's talent. He's sudden. He's a leader. I think he's got some juice. He's been around the program for a while. One of those sort of late bloomer players that's sort of seen it all, been there, done that, but still has a little bit more ability than maybe people believe. I think he's going to be somebody that helps this defense as well. I think the linebacker position is solid when you throw Maurice Blackwell into it as well, but I am a little bit concerned about the depth. I don't know what the next wave looks like, and that's been a common theme with a couple of teams we've talked about. It's just that, yeah, these front line 2, 3 look okay, but what's next? Don't really know. I think linebacker depth is maybe a little bit of concern for this defense. I would say maybe more concerning than the interior of the defensive line, which is just everybody kind of points in a lazy manner because you don't have the two that you had a year ago. But you also don't have Jalen Ford from a year ago. So those numbers aren't quite the same either. I want to see. So in the secondary, also at linebacker or off the edge, Zena, I want to see Ozulu saw that interception right in his chest that he dropped in the spring game. I think he's a guy who could potentially help this defense a little bit, but he's not where the other youngster is. When you're talking about Colin Simmons, like I don't think he's going to be ready to be out there right away. Secondary, you go get Andrew Mikuba from Clemson, Austin guy. I want to see coming back home, really good football player, super talented, played a lot of ball. I see you plug him at free safety, you should be fine there. I want to see you go over to your boundary safety. Derek Williams Jr.'s played some football. Jade Barron at star, sort of the glue that holds the defense together. Great communicator, great leader, played a lot, seen a lot. I don't know the overall playmaking ability of that group because let's be real, the pass defense was a problem last year. 116th in pass defense, 254.4 yards per game allowed. It's got to be better. It has to be. And I think part of that was teams knew they had to score against Texas. So you're probably not just handing the ball off a bunch, but it still shouldn't be that bad. And yes, you have experience. Malik Muhammad has apparently been living up to the hype at corner. Him taking a step, I think, would help a lot. Kobe Black had the interception he stepped in front of in the spring game. He potentially could come in and help a little bit as well. Gavin Holmes, also going to be back, probably going to be a starter. You saw him make a couple plays in the spring game as well. So I want to see some of the same bodies back who didn't play great football last year. You saw some miscommunication and some letdown plays in the spring game. All that leads me to say that that's got to be the biggest concern for this team going into this season. I don't know what else would be. I feel pretty good about everything else. I think this is a team that should probably be competing for a spot in the playoff. I actually am not near as concerned about week 2 at Michigan as everybody else is. I do think the contrast will be Michigan defense, Texas offense. I want to see, obviously, that strength on strength. And then Michigan offense, not as strong against the Texas secondary, not as strong. Maybe Texas defense in general, we don't really know yet. But then you get UTSA, Long Monroe, Mississippi State at home in an open day before Oklahoma. Like that's a long runway after week 2 to be able to get set for your biggest rival game. Georgia the next week's tough. I don't love that, even though it's at home. I don't like playing Red River Shootout at the Cotton Bowl and then having Georgia at home. That's filthy. Trip to Vanderbilt should be fine. Open week, Florida at home. Don't sleep on Florida, folks. Just don't. The offense is very similar from a formation and run game standpoint. So the Florida defense is seen in practice every day. You're going to have a quarterback that's a grown man, that's efficient and can make plays. I want to see. All I'm saying is just, I want to see careful with that one at that point in the season. But you got 2 weeks to prepare for it. It should be fine. At Arkansas, we had Colt McCoy on a show in Birmingham this morning on Jocks, 7 to 10 a.m., jocksfm.com. And he talked about being able to play Arkansas. And this is a game he's excited it's coming back. And he said, it was different. The media attention was different. The fans were different. He's like, all of it was different. I loved hearing that because, I'm interested in Oklahoma and Texas and kind of, we know what the A&M game is. We know Red River Shootout. What other rivalries are going to develop? Because one thing that has happened in this league over time is like other rivalries, they develop, they show up for different reasons, some off the field, some on the field, some coaching change, some administratively. Like Florida and LSU got all kind of reasons that they've turned into like a more hated rival. So I'm anxious to see some of those that pop up for Texas and Oklahoma. And that's obviously one that we would point to and say has a chance to be right out of the gate. I think it's going to be a lot of friggin' fun. And then you get Kentucky at home, a team that physically you're not going to be able to beat up. Mark Stoops' team will bring physicality, will punch back, and you're not going to be able to push them around. Brad White does a great job with that defense. And then you're at Texas A&M, which is one of the games of the year, in my opinion, mainly because we get it back. And it's just going to be everything that I think any of us are imagining. The schedule is kind of manageable. I love the way that a lot of the bigger games are sort of spread apart. At Michigan, I want to see a couple of weeks. Then you get Oklahoma off a bye week. Now, Georgia at home the week after that, it is what it is. But we saw what that place was at 11 a.m. for Alabama a couple of years ago. Doubt that game's going to be during the day. I think it's probably going to end up being prime time, and that's going to be loud. And that's going to be a big advantage for Texas to have the Georgia Bulldogs at home. It's going to be a hell of a matchup because Georgia's the most talented team in the league, and right now the best team in the league. And I think that's one that everybody's probably got circled as one of the very few games of the year, along with Texas and Texas A&M. So my thought for this football team, as we kind of close this one out, should be in the playoff. I think not being in the playoff is a disappointment for Steve Sarkisian this year. You have a returning quarterback. You have quarterback depth. You have playmakers at tight end, running back, receiver, all over the place. Your offensive line should be one of the best, have a chance to be the best in college football. I'm not just going to say they're better than LSU right now. I'm not just going to say they're definitively better than Georgia or Alabama right now. Oregon will have a say in that as well. And some other teams will show up and give it a run. But they have a chance to have the best offensive line in college football. I want to see you've added some things that you didn't necessarily have last year, and you've been in the system a little bit longer. That should be of great assistance. Texas has a great chance to be in the playoff. In my opinion, Texas will be in the playoff. And if Quinn Ewers takes a little bit more of a step and stays healthy, that's going to be absolutely massive for this football team. And it doesn't matter what happens in the Georgia game. I think they still have a chance to be in the playoff without that one. And you could even say Georgia or Michigan. They get the rest of them, they're going to be in the college football playoff. I want to see Texas, too, because that's a pretty good schedule, and there are some pretty good wins on there. So that's my thoughts on the Texas Longhorns kind of coming out of spring, the things that I heard, some of the position battles, where they are from a position standpoint going into the year. I think it's going to be fun to watch them. I'm excited to bring them into the league. If you're watching this on Sunday, tomorrow is the day. And I'm excited to go through all that. I'm excited to be at Media Days with Texas and Oklahoma there in about a month. And just excited to get this season going with both of them here. These two teams belong. It feels like it works. It feels like it's one that's supposed to be here. And it's going to be badass, man. It really is. We made it to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you so much for that. I'm grateful. I appreciate it. A lot of you guys keep coming back to the show, and I can't tell you how much it means to me. Thank you very much for that. I want to keep this thing going. We'll continue some of our spring reviews over the next few weeks. Heading down to the Grand Hotel this week, and I'm going to be at the Senior Bowl Hall of Fame banquet. May do a couple conversations with Cole down there, depending on what we can get who's available. We'll be back with another team preview next week. We're going to be coming to you each and every Sunday. We're sort of back on track here. We'll see you next time.